The president-elect arrives in Washington on the eve of taking his oath after being moved to tears departing from Delaware.
Jill told me not to become emotional. I'm truly honored to be your next president.
We'll get you ready with the schedule of events, the celebrities to watch for, and tonight's moving tribute on the Mall.
The somber remembrances planned for the victims of COVID-19, and we'll tell you how the pandemic impacts inaugural tradition starting tonight.
Then,
tightening security. Why at least a dozen National Guard members have now been relieved of duty.
They need to be removed from the Guard.
what leaders are saying about new warnings of violence.
Bridges closed for sweep.
I'm Adam Tuss at bridges and roads all across the area. This is what you're going to see. Military personnel blocking off access. I'll have a complete updated list of where you can go coming up.
Plus, Mitch McConnell points the finger at Trump.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president.
The Senate Majority Leader's sharpest rebuke yet of the Capitol riots. And keeping her centered.
Our Vice President-elect is much like what you see today. She was very cool. She was very calm. She was very collected.
Meet the sisterhood celebrating Kamala Harris's historic ascent to the Vice President's office. Right now on News 4.
Life in Washington includes a front row seat to history, and together we are watching the start of a brand new chapter.
President-elect Joe Biden just arrived in Washington. He and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are just hours away from taking the oath of office. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to News 4 at 4. I'm Leon Harris.
I'm Pat Lawson Muse, and we are already seeing signs of a shifting political landscape. Republican leader Mitch McConnell opened the Senate for the first time today since the Capitol insurrection. His first words about the mob that stormed the Capitol ricocheted all the way to the White House and beyond.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
Meanwhile, a dozen members of the National Guard have been relieved of their inauguration duties after the vetting process. Federal officials say that this is not because of concerns about extremist views. Rather, they say it's because some of the removals are because of criminal background checks that raised questions and others over inappropriate comments.
It is President Trump's final night to sleep in the White House and his last full day to use his vast presidential powers, including his pardon power. We're expecting to get a list of pardons tonight.
This as the Senate gets to work on the president-elect's cabinet picks, with 5 confirmation hearings scheduled for today.
And this year, because of the pandemic, we're asked to watch all of the pageantry from home. The inaugural committee is honoring those who stayed away with this stunning public art display.
Before the transfer of power here. As the last wave of National Guard troops move into Washington, we now know about a dozen soldiers are moving out, relieved of duty here after an intense background check, though officials stress at this time they found no Guard connection to any extremist groups.
Nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. With confirmation hearings underway for several key members of his cabinet, President-elect Joe Biden
Kind of emotional for me.
Leaves Delaware for D.C. from a National Guard base named after his late son, Bo.
And I'm honored. I'm truly honored to be your next president and commander-in-chief. And I'll always be a proud son of the state of Delaware.
The president-elect and vice president-elect Kamala Harris will pause this evening to honor the more than 400,000 victims of COVID-19 at the Lincoln Reflecting Pool at the end of a national mall filled with flags. The crowds that usually gather for the inaugural kept away now because of the virus and security concerns, though lawmakers from both parties insist the ceremony will go on just like it has for more than 200 years.
Tomorrow, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris will be sworn in. We'll have a safe and successful inaugural right here on the west front of the Capitol.
Under the watchful eye of a security force that we now know will stay in place in some form through at least the end of the month. And as you can see, former Vice President and soon-to-be President Biden arriving here and getting ready for what's going to happen tomorrow. He's got a few stops this evening, as we talked about. Of course, the focus for everyone on the ground as he arrives is obviously tomorrow's ceremony and what the FBI unfortunately continues to point out are credible threats of violence here. Guys.
Thank you, Jay. Jay Gray reporting live for us from Washington this evening.
And developing right now at 4, about a dozen National Guard members sent to D.C. to protect the inauguration are being relieved of duty. Federal officials have been vetting more than 25,000 Guard members over fears of an insider attack. News 4's Mark Segraves joins us live with the latest details on those background checks. What have you learned, Mark?
Yeah, this is a very fluid story. You'll remember yesterday we broke the story that there were open investigations into people who have problems with their background check. Then this morning, the first reports that came out that there were 2 members of the National Guard that had problems. Now we know at least 12 members of the National Guard have now been sent home. At least a dozen National Guard members have now been removed from the security for the inauguration as a result of the FBI's background checks. So far, no indication of any plot against President-elect Joe Biden.
Needs not only to be removed from this duty, they need to be removed from the Guard.
With only hours until the swearing in on the steps of the Capitol that were overrun with rioters 2 weeks ago, streams of razor wire now surround the U.S. Capitol grounds. Parades of police convoys speeding through the streets of downtown. News media from around the world trying to get the best vantage point. Businesses in the shadow of the Capitol dome boarded up. Even police headquarters surrounded by fencing protected by armed troops. And now, heavier restrictions on the airspace above D.C. Mayor Bowser went to the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Eastern Market today to point out that while the downtown core and federal enclave may be surrounded by fencing and troops, most of D.C. isn't impacted.
We want Americans to see the real D.C. It is a much-needed reminder to the world that our city has so much to offer outside of the federal enclave.
D.C.'s police chief was asked what happens if protesters do come and are turned away from the Capitol and make their way into these nearby neighborhoods.
We've planned for that. We want to make sure that our communities are not forgotten in our security posture. We have a contingency plan for that. We're fully staffed. Members are working 12-hour shifts, and we have sufficient resources to cover what we need to cover.
Hey, Mark, you asked the mayor a question today that made some news. It turns out she has spoken directly to the president-elect. What did she have to say about the conversation?
Yeah, she was very candid that they spoke right after the riots inside the U.S. Capitol, that the primary discussion was about inaugural security. I asked her if she had asked him about vaccination allotment for the District of Columbia or the $750 million district officials think they were shortchanged in the stimulus program. She would not be specific about that, saying they talked about a lot of issues. But when I asked her if they talked about statehood for the District of Columbia, listen to the mayor's answer on this.
I can say, and I don't think he would mind me saying this. He said something to the effect like, kid, you know, I've always been there with you. You know, I've always supported statehood.
Mayor Bowser also said today that she will be attending Joe Biden's swearing-in ceremony tomorrow afternoon. Pat, back to you.
All right, Mark Segraves. Thank you, Mark.
Well, if you've been anywhere near downtown D.C., you know traffic has been a real problem, even more so than usual with all the closures. Take a look now at some of this video. This is delays from our news partners at WTOP. They shot this earlier today. Transportation reporter Adam Tuss joins us now. He's live at the Memorial Bridge, which is now completely closed down to traffic. And Adam, it's got to be kind of weird out there right now with no activity there, huh?
Yeah, definitely strange. I mean, the pandemic is weird enough, Leon, because of no traffic. All of this going on, also strange. Take a look at the security presence that now guards one of our most famous bridges. Drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, all coming here, stopping to ask for directions. And, you know, there are actually some positive changes with what you can do with some of the bridges around here, and that's good for local residents. Take a look.
This has not been an easy set of closures to navigate, and the reason behind all of it
hasn't been easy for a lot of local residents to stomach.
It's a shock. It's a disgrace.
Thomas Andrews drives a construction truck. He normally has plenty of access points to get downtown, but now his path is closed off, and he understands why. What about all the closures, all the road traffic, everything else?
I think it's needed because for protection, we need them. God bless America.
Now, if you've been struggling to keep up with all the bridge changes, so have we. We've even had to scribble on our own News4 maps. Today, the most recent changes, the Anacostia bridges will remain open. The Douglas Bridge, 11th Street Bridge, and Sousa Bridge all now will stay open to local traffic. That means you can use them to go inbound. Commercial vehicles will still be prohibited. Our news partners at WTOP capturing this scene earlier this morning, as clearly a lot of people missed the message about the inbound 14th Street Bridge closing down. The delays stretched from the morning until the sun came up. Longtime WTOP traffic reporter Dave Dildine.
Well, you can't close this many D.C. area bridges and not expect at least some side effects. That shows you just how much demand there is for 395. You can't displace that much traffic and not expect at least some impact.
As we inch closer to the inauguration, any traffic that's out there continues to inch along as well. All right, Leon, stay with me here.
All right.
The bridges that you now cannot use to go into the city. The Roosevelt Bridge, the Memorial Bridge right here, and the 14th Street Bridge. Those are the bridges that you cannot use to get into the city. Everyone keep track. It's going to be a busy couple of days. We'll all get through it. Back to you.
All right, keeping the fingers crossed. Adam Tuss reporting live for us this evening. Thanks, Adam. Pat?
President Trump is spending his last full day in office in an extraordinary bubble of isolation. He's cut off from his Twitter account, and most of his aides have left. Today, supporters and critics alike are watching his final hours in office to see how he will use his presidential powers, including his pardon power. Alice Barr joins us from the White House now. And Alice, it sounds like things are pretty quiet over there today. Is that right?
That is certainly the case, Pat, although we just did get a farewell message released by the White House from President Trump, a taped message in which he's sort of claiming credit for what he sees as many of the successes of his administration, saying that the Make America Great movement, Make America Great Again movement is just beginning, while also asking his supporters to pray for the incoming Biden administration. And this is the first time we've heard from the president in a week. He has really been out of sight as he prepares to leave office under another historic first, the impending impeachment trial of an ex-president.
In the final hours of the Trump presidency, the man who entered the White House with daily made-for-TV moments started his last full day behind closed doors, out of sight for a week. Among President Trump's closing acts, weighing pardons and commutations for potentially dozens of people, including high-profile allies. Sources telling NBC News that for now, the president is not expected to issue a preemptive pardon for himself or his family members. He is planning a red carpet send-off for himself tomorrow morning that could include a color guard, a military band, and a 21-gun salute. The early exit making him the first president in more than 150 years to skip his successor's inauguration. Also the first U.S. president to face an impeachment trial after leaving office. President Trump has a shrinking group of aides and advisors to plan his defense. Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell reconvening the Senate today with these searing words about the Capitol siege.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden arriving in Washington today under a heavy security presence.
I'm truly honored to be your next president.
As he prepares to take the oath of office and take on historic crises in a deeply divided nation.
And proof of the huge challenges ahead for President-elect Biden, a new NBC News poll finds that 7 in 10 Americans believe this country is on the wrong track and will remain divided after the Trump era ends. Back to you, Pat and Leon.
All right. Joe Biden's got a tough job ahead of him. Thank you, Alice.
Well, let's check and see what kind of job Doug Kammerer has got on his hands this evening. Our chief meteorologist tracking some cooler temperatures for the inauguration tomorrow. Hey, Doug.
A lot cooler. It's going to feel close to 20 degrees colder than it does outside right now, as a cold front making its way through the area will really bring through not only the cold, but some windy conditions, too. We'll break that down for you, and a couple of chances for some snow in the forecast. See you back here in a minute.
Coming up on News 4.
The more arms that this vaccine goes in is the sooner that we can get through this.
Chasing the vaccine. Turns out sometimes mom and pop pharmacies are the place to find the shots.
This is our family. This is our community.
I'll tell you more just ahead.
On the eve of the inauguration, I'm talking with Kamala Harris's AKA sorority sisters.
What was our vice president-elect like back then? She was very calm. She was very collected.
Their thoughts on her days at Howard to making history in the White House.
Next on News 4.